Digibajitunda. All on day, the one that fits ya. Katikin Digibajitunda. All on day, the one that fits.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Nile Book Club. My name's Katasi and
I am Kalungi Sabandike.
Yep. And this month we are reading The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna. And today is October 31st, it's Halloween, and I low-key wanted to wear some fancy dress, but I was like, no, I think Kalungi might think it's too much.
No, I wouldn't have thought it was too much. I don't care about Halloween, but I wouldn't have cared if I think maybe I can wear this hat and I can say I've come as Freddy Krueger or something.
Come as Freddy. I don't have anything really. I'm looking around the room. No, nothing. Anyway.
Okay. So I'll do the kind of quick synopsis. So The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna follows a young woman who on the day of her purity test to check how pure she is, discovers her village is invaded by these monsters known as death shrieks. Upon that kind of invasion, it is discovered that she has the power to command them, which makes the village people think that she's not pure. And it turns out she doesn't bleed regular blood, but she bleeds golden blood. And she's actually able to kind of come back from the dead, no matter how many times they kill her, until they find out her death, her final death. So it's a beautiful book, fantasy fiction. If you like, I guess people kept saying if you like Black Panther, you'd like this, and it really is a little bit like that. It's kind of futuristic, but yeah. So immediately, like, what did you think? What did you think of it?
Well, I have to say this is my first foray into young adult fiction. Mm-hmm. So I don't even know if I'm best placed to really like critique it. I thought one of our members would be quite an added participant in this conversation. But that being said, I thought it was like an incredible attempt at creating like a whole new world. I think Namina did that really well. And having like done some research on her, I know she spent years reading sort of old historical texts about ancient African kingdoms and thereafter creating her own. So it's the kind of thing that I'm not even into video games. And I think when I was younger, I used to enjoy this like hospital game where you had to build hospitals and stuff. And this would be an incredible like game, I think. And I can definitely see why it was brought up in terms of turning it into a TV production or a televised version of it. And I think the themes were really hard-hitting, from patriarchy, like obviously the main theme being about patriarchy and the suppression of women and violence against women and girls. But all that being said, I'm not sure I actually enjoyed it.
Oh.
Yeah. But we'll get into that later. But like, yeah, so for a young person, I think it's a really interesting take on fighting the patriarchy. And there's some really great examples of like female relationships, like the sisterhood. But there's a few things that I just struggled with.
Okay, well, yeah, like you said, we'll get into that. For me, I really enjoyed it. So I was really looking forward to. It's not my first foray into YA, but it is the first time I've actually been consistent with setting aside an hour every day to read. And I did this with this book like every evening, or at least most evenings. And I was really looking forward to that time, like really looking. I wasn't dreading, oh, I'm going to have to read this. I was really going, oh my God, what's going to happen next to Decca and all, and the kind of twist and some stuff I saw coming, but I really enjoyed reading it, and I did see the world really vividly. I think one thing I really liked about it, as someone who doesn't read a lot of like fantasy fiction, it was very accessible. So, it was set in a world that she'd made up, but they were familiar aspects of that world. You know, she used names that we recognize. They weren't, you know, completely new Game of Thrones names like Targaryen or Cersei. You know, them names where it's like, how do you even say that? Like stuff like the Last Kingdom or the, you know, those Viking shows where it's just so difficult to decipher. But it was really, really accessible, and it's like, oh, you saw names like Kwaku and, you know,
Kelechi,
Kelechi.
Dandy.
Exactly. So, and I really, really like that. Like, she didn't shy away from her being inspired by other parts of Africa, and it wasn't just West Africa. And I know she's from Sierra Leone, so, and you can see the influences definitely. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I could definitely see. I thought it was it's like it could be made into a TV series, but then I read that it's going to be made into a film. So I think that makes sense for it to be a film, like, but it's franchise. I think there's another, there's the sequel is coming. What did they call it? The Merciless Ones. So
Yeah.
that's coming in 2022. So I'm really looking forward to that. So I enjoyed it. So do you mind if I ask then why you didn't enjoy it?
Okay, before I get into why I didn't enjoy it, because
Okay.
I think it's really important to stay positive.
Okay.
To stay as positive as possible. I also echo what you say around accessibility. It was accessible. The names were familiar. Again, I didn't see any East African names, but hey, that's okay.
Oh,
That's
oh.
not for us to. Is that for
Wait,
us to?
there could have been some Tanzanian names in there, wasn't there?
Tanzania, maybe Nazra was, but you know, Thandiwe, she was Southern African. And I really like what she said when she was introducing herself to Decca, when she was like, if you say my name wrong, I'm gonna cut your tongue out, basically.
Yeah.
That was interesting because I don't like it when people get my name wrong sometimes.
What about Asha? Asha won't count as an East African name?
Okay, maybe Asha was. I know an Ethiopian woman called Asha.
Or Adwapa, like Asha, Adwapa, I don't know if that could be like Eritrean or Ethiopian.
Ghanaian. I don't
Okay,
know.
it's, yeah. But anyway, people will tell us. But yeah, so
Yeah, they will. But yeah, and I think in terms of like building this world, she did a really like phenomenal job, from like the governance to the religion, you know, the constant reference to like the equivalent of like the religious text. That was interesting, and that was really convincing, and it was consistent throughout. So I do think it was a nice intro to YA. And why not be like a black book in terms of that, rather than sort of yeah, even the descriptions of like the melanated people and you know, their woolly hair, all that stuff. I'm all for that in terms of it still being relatable as well. Things that I struggled with, I struggled with just our protagonist. Like, I struggled with Dika. I didn't feel like I connected with her, even though I felt bad about that, because I'm like, oh well, she's this young woman, and you know, this book obviously is targeting young people. I just couldn't identify with her, or even my younger self. And I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why. And I think there was something around like the character development and not wanting to know more about her circle, like who's Britta. It was all a bit superficial, and I really wanted to know more about her friends, apart from them being always supportive. That's just one aspect.
Okay. Well, okay. Maybe, I mean, I'm reading at the same time. I'm reading Children of Blood and Bone, and
Okay.
that's a lot, you know, more detailed with like just the beginning. And but then that I'm finding it hard to kind of get into that, and I don't know it's because of just how detailed it is. It sounds really silly, but like it's really dense. Like Children of Blood and Bone is really dense in comparison to the Gilded Ones, which does have that kind of easier accessibility. So there isn't so much kind of emphasis on loads of all the other characters. There's just like Decca, and everybody's serving her. I did find it. You make a good point about focusing a lot on Decca and not much about her circle, because everybody literally, for some reason, as for someone who can't get killed, everybody really worried about her. Like, she can't get killed. Like, you guys are more likely to get killed than her. but they were all there to like protect her just because she could command the death shrieks. That kind of annoyed me, how they all bent backwards to just look after this girl, like, and she can't get killed.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And also, I wondered if any of them would be traitors, but there were no traitors. Like, why didn't anyone in her circle potentially just turn on her? But no one did. So it was quite idealistic. But then again, we've got enough like portrays of women not being supportive. So we'll stick with the positive girlhood, girl power.
I think that's what that you must have read the note at the back, right? At the end. And that was her main kind of idea, is to try kind of put more of a lens on the patriarchy and the damages of patriarchy. So the dudes, with the exception of maybe, what was the guy that
Hater.
fancied her? Cater, yeah. He all the dudes were potential traitors, and they were evil, no good doers. Um, so so yeah, she wasn't a butt. Even when Belcalis, I think Belcalis, whatever her name is, like at the start, she came across very kind of like antagonistic to Decca, but then in the end, they became really good friends. Um, so I think that she just wanted to, show sisterhood and togetherness and, all that
Yeah.
good stuff. Yeah.
So interesting that you talk about she wanted to portray patriarchy and what that's like. I then, after reading it, I thought to myself, okay, how is that really a fantasy? Because this is my current reality. I live in a patriarchy. So where's the mystery? There's none. This, we have live examples of all this violence that we experienced or that she presented. So it doesn't really take away from what's happening in my current reality. I don't need to read a YA book to know about some of the horrific things happening in the world.
Yeah, but I think if you think about the so-called target audience of the young adults who read this, they can kind of like get a chance to kind of dissect patriarchy, but in a um less real world, like they can kind of almost see themselves in this character. Anyone can see themselves in this character, without kind of going, oh, this is set in England, so it's only happening in England, or this is set in Africa, so it's only happening in Africa. They can all go, oh, it's set in this fantasy world, so they can start kind of projecting their own reality on there. And you're right, patriarchy is happening in the real world, but I think they called it, the fantasy aspect is all these kind of like larger than life, or even fantastical elements of it, with the death shrieks that can, scream and kill you. And so that we don't have death shrieks. That maybe there are animals in the jungle somewhere that scream and can burst your eardrums, but we don't have girls that bleed blood, at least that we know of.
We don't have what that bleeds blood?
Girls that bleed blood, like women that bleed blood, young women that bleed blood. Sorry, bleed gold.
Okay.
Bleed gold. That's silly.
Yeah, well, they don't, but okay, they don't they don't bleed gold, no, but they bleed. And actually, in terms of like, I read one of these a review that was, this is a very, very basic thing to point out, but like, how is it that it took up to 16 years for them to realize that these girls were impure when they bled? Like, did they never have nosebleeds? Did they never scuff their knees? Right?
Yeah, but that's the thing, that's why they always kept them really protected, and they made sure they weren't in the kitchen to cut themselves. When's the last time you had a nosebleed? I've never had a nosebleed in my life. It's very rare that people have nosebleeds. Maybe you do, but I haven't had nosebleeds. I know many people that do. So all these other things of where blood could come out of them, it is rare. Now the other thing of like maybe the puberty aspect of it, did no one ever like, wouldn't their mothers come across that, like while they were cleaning their underwear, that hey, this isn't red blood, this is golden blood that you're bleeding?
Yeah, but they didn't start menstruating until they were like 16. But anyway,
Is that how they
that's
made
how
it?
that's
Okay.
that's the impression I got. In terms of, okay, there's something that you said that I wanted to come back and respond to. I don't know, I felt like, oh yeah. So I also struggled with the length. I wondered if it really needed to be 410 pages long.
Oh.
Like,
Oh.
was that necessary? And at certain points, had it not been for the book club, I felt like, oh my God, this is a bit torturous. I'm not entirely enjoying this.
Oh.
And I'm only reading this to complete it for the book club.
Oh. Wow.
And it's only when we got to midway that I was like, okay, now we're getting into it. When she goes to oh, how do you pronounce that place? Where when she goes to battle, essentially, is when it got interesting for me. But a lot of time was just spent, and I was just like, I just don't understand how this is adding value. And I was just struggling with it. It was just slow for me, and I really wanted to just be a bit punchier. But what kept me reading it was that the themes are really important and relatable. So when you spoke about, keeping them, guarded and not cutting themselves, some of these things reminded me of like traditional Chaganda culture, in terms of in the olden days, like if you had any scars on you, you were sort of seen as like less than, it's like important for a woman to make sure that she's got no cuts or any scars on her. And an ex-boyfriend actually told me that, because I had some kind of scar or something like that. So I was just thinking that's really quite ridiculous, but it was relatable to this. Or just the everyday, these Abrahamic religions and their perception around like women and menstruation, like can't go to certain places of worship if you're bleeding, so for a young person exploring like feminism, I think it's a good entry point.
Yeah, and I think that's her target audience, really. That's who she was going for. I think if you've lived a life and you're mature like us, I'm not saying we're old or anything. If you're a mature reader, it's not going to be like new revolutionary stuff. Like I definitely saw that it was very kind of it wasn't subtle. There wasn't much subtlety there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, as someone who's kind of, and I don't want to say I'm only entering into fantasy fiction now, because I'm sure I've read some, I just can't remember. I think, yeah, Noughts and Crosses is fantasy fiction as well. Kind of. Yeah, it is fantasy fiction because it's reversed. But yeah, as someone who doesn't regularly read this kind of material, I really enjoyed it, and it made me want to read more stuff from her and also more stuff in the fantasy fiction. I was really looking forward to reading more, like Children of Blood and Bone. Like when I was like, oh, I can't wait to get started on that as well. So it was a good entry point. But yeah, like I think her commentary on patriarchy and the way the world treats women and young women. I think she wanted to kind of make it accessible, and I think she really did her job. But again, I'm a dude, so I wasn't, maybe I liked some of the action. I liked getting an insight into a young woman's mind that I don't usually or rarely have access to. So it was great to kind of see that narrative. We don't really get that a lot. Like these fantasy fictions, sometimes it's usually from the point of view of a guy, of a young boy. He wakes up and his muscles pulsated as he walked down the alleyway, whatever. So we don't really get this kind of, um, this kind of strong but tender narrative that we get. And but she was very, she did moan a lot. She moaned a lot, like for someone who couldn't get killed. But even though it did bring a lot of pain when she was going, like when she was in the gilded sleep or when she was getting beheaded, whatever, that brought a lot of pain. But I just felt like you're kind of invincible. You're invincible, And
Okay, so you thought she was a bit moany.
yeah, I thought sometimes she came across a bit moany, like, oh no, the boy I liked back home, he told me I was beautiful, but then he stabbed me in my face, and I'll never trust a man again. Oh, Keita, oh, so handsome, but wait, he's trying to kill me as well. Oh, I knew to never trust anyone. Like she never trusted anyone, but yet they were always trying to protect her. Literally, everybody was out there to protect Decca at all, because she had even had her own animal that morphed into a much bigger thing. That all it said was her name, and literally was down to protect her.
I felt more connected to the animal when I was more endeared by the animal than I was to Deca. Elixir.
Wow, wow,
It's
really?
called Elixir, wasn't it? It was such a cute sounding animal. Like I want one of my own.
So just because it was cute sounding, you liked it more than Decca?
I don't know. Maybe it's because I
Elixir,
spent
yeah.
too much time around animals recently, but I was just like,
Oh,
oh, this is intriguing. I'm intrigued by this creature.
yeah.
Yeah, I was more intrigued by that's a terrible thing to say. On the subject of Keita, okay, maybe she's moany as well because this is a target audience. Like, I don't want to throw out any tropes around like young people, but that disgruntledness that young people can have sometimes. Maybe she was trying to connect with them.
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think teenage mind and teenagehood, you know, there's always kind of things are very intense, little things. Of course, she was in a very high stakes situation. People were trying to kill her. There were monsters trying to kill her, but she did have a lot of protection and guidance. People would literally lay down their lives for her, and she did have the ability to literally stop and make anyone do whatever she wanted. All she had to do go stop right there. And sometimes actually there was some inconsistencies, and I did find a grammatical error.
Oh, did you? I was wondering if you were. Tell me.
I did, and I took a picture of this because I thought, and I always that annoys me because I'm like, but you lot spent money on an editor and you thanked your editor as well, okay? And you're telling me that you don't. I'm being a hater now. You're telling me that my thing can't get published because I got spelling mistakes, but you published this though, and they had spelling mistakes.
Oh no.
Maybe I'm being a hater. Okay, so I found it. And I'm
Page.
sorry, Namina, 297. I'm sorry if you ever watch this. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to. It's your editor's fault. Where was the spelling mistake? Let me. I took a picture of it to find it. Where is it? Um. Let's see. I turn my back to come across. She gives attention. Aha. There we go. Caught you. So the second. What? No. The third paragraph after "quiet ye," Britta hisses. The sentence that begins with, I turn my attention back to Komoko Caldaris as she gives instruction onto how to. Was that just
What
me?
page is this?
297. She gives
297. Okay.
There was an extra 2 there that shouldn't be there. Instructions on how to receive our suits of armor, but someone had added instructions onto how to. Is that a sentence? Or maybe it's me. Now I'll read it out loud. I go, maybe it does make sense. She gives instructions onto how to. You give instruction on how to.
Quiet ye.
So the sentence that starts with, I turn my attention back to Kamoko Caldaris as she gives instruction on how to receive our suits of armor, but there was an added to after on. So the sentence reads, instruction on to how to.
Oh, not in mine.
Not in yours?
No.
What in the...
I turn my attention back to Carmichael Carderis as she gives instruction on how to receive our suits of armor, not in mine.
Oh, they discovered it and then they quickly did a reprint. Cheeky. Well, okay, don't know how they did that. Oh my God, they rectified that early.
Maybe an early release copy there.
I might have an early release. 2021. Anyway. Well, forget that. Forget what I said.
That was. Were there any other inconsistencies that you spotted apart from one?
Oh yeah. The inconsistency I clocked was that so she can use her voice to stop and make command them, right? And then but then there was a time where those things had like little things in their ears that stopped them from hearing her.
Yeah.
But at that moment, that comical lady had taught her how to move and use a movement, but also use her mind without having to actually use her voice. So therefore, those ear things were pointless. She could just use her mind because she regularly used her mind to speak to Ixa. So so there was a time where they were like, oh, they've got these little cochleas, whatever they're called, you know, those ear things.
Yeah.
It's like, that means my power can't work. But I was thinking, but wait, you've been taught this new movement thing, and even if they blocked you and put you down, you can also use your mind because you have the ability to do that.
True.
But I would have to go back and see if that. There was a time where I thought that. I was like, no, you can literally just go, you know. It was telepathical, whatever it's called.
Telepathic, yeah.
Telepathic. Yeah, telepathy. So she had that.
Okay.
So that was also, yeah, and it was interesting that it was almost convenient that Cartier, that they get turned into death shrieks when they die.
Spoiler alert.
You haven't finished it.
No, for other people watching, but we always have spoilers in ours.
If we've been giving them spoilers from the beginning. I'm sorry if you're listening to this and you haven't read it. I'm sorry.
Too bad.
Yeah, too bad. But yeah, like
yeah.
I thought it was a bit slightly convenient, like, but then I was thinking, if she could understand them all this time, why didn't they tell her early? Why couldn't she understand them the first time she came in contact with them? Or was it a gradual thing where she was like, it took a little while? They could have literally just said, stop, it's us, don't do that. Because they literally were called Neru. They called it Neru. They understood.
Nuru, yeah.
She could understand them. So when the first time she came in contact with them, why didn't she go, why did it take all this time?
Yeah, it's a really good point. It's a really good point.
Yeah.
Why did it take all the slaughtering?
Yeah, of killing her. And even the White Hands lady, she could have told her all this. It's like, don't kill. Why did they have to sacrifice other women, because there were women, in order for them to finally be able to resurrect their gods, their goddesses? Like, wasn't there another way to do that?
It's a good point. Like, what was really White Hands doing? And let's think about this. So the Jackie, like the soldiers, what are they called?
The Jatus.
The Jatus.
Yeah.
That was the main thing that the White Hands wanted to get to, like, obliterate them so that the goddesses could be free.
Yeah, she wanted to get rid of also Emperor Gezo, like those whole like emperors and the whole world. I think that's what it got a bit convoluted towards the end. I was like, what was the original thing? Like, I also wondered as well, like, was it an intricate world that she created with all these various objectives and plot twists, or was it, did all these things come into play as she was writing the book? Like, was it something was the idea of like patriarchy the main driving force, and all the other things just came into play, and as she was writing the book, she go, oh, well, actually Emperor Gezo could be White Hands' relative, and oh, okay, maybe actually the Death Shrieks, they resurrect. Or did she think, again, maybe I'm being misogynistic here and proving a point by suggesting that she didn't think this through, but there was just sometimes where I went, well, if that was true, why didn't White Hands just send their message and say, don't kill them, or pretend to kill them, pretend to kill them, because that means they weren't really a threat to them. Because although the Death Shrieks did say that, when they start panicking, it makes them scream, and then it leads to them killing the people. But then that means you sacrifice so many other people. It just sometimes, now that I speak it out loud, I go, White Hands was in control of this. She literally could have just told Decker and all the girls, like, just pretend to kill this lady, do these Death Shrieks. Sorry, yeah, you don't have to do all this. But she put them at risk, and she even killed other Death Shrieks. She killed other young girls.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And if we just go back to the beginning, so her father finds out that she's not pure, and then they're attacked. The village is attacked, and And who's attacking the village? The Death Shrieks.
The Death Shrieks actually came to collect her, apparently.
Exactly. So then it was like, it's a lot of emotional turmoil to, it's a lot.
But if these that's the thing. That's where the confusion lies. If these Death Shrieks know that physically they're very, very scary, why are they coming in large numbers? Why are they coming to collect her? Why don't they get White Hands just like White Hands came to collect her in the first place? Why do they have to come and invade this whole village? They know they're gonna scare people. You know how you look. It's not like they're looking at each other going, no, you know you look very, very, and you're called Death Shrieks, so you know you're very violent and aggressive. So why are you then coming in this village to collect this girl, right? And then baiting it out that she has the ability to command you guys, therefore she's impure. And also as well, how can the dad be surprised that she was impure when she knows the mom was also impure as well?
Yeah,
Unless the
he
dad didn't
knew.
know. Yeah.
And I kept hoping that would go back to the father and that maybe there'll be another throwback to Ilona's or whatever, like her love interest, her initial love interest, but there never was. Yeah, so if the dad already did know, then yeah, good question.
Yeah, there's all these questions that now we need answers to because, like, the Dead Streaks came to collect her, right? Because that's what Whitehand said. They came to collect her, right? She then commands them so to go away. They all see her eyes turning, her voice changing, so they're going, "Well, you're crazy. You're actually not pure." In that process, those Death Streaks have killed other people. Then she gets killed. They try to kill her and bleed her multiple times. Whitehands comes to save her, takes her on this journey and goes over to this place to train her, to start killing other girls who are also part of this mission to get rid of the emperor so that they can resurrect the goddesses. And it's like that is a very convoluted way of doing it. You could have just got what's her name, Decca, took her directly to where the goddesses were because you knew where they were, right? The death shrieks, she can understand them. So then just explain to her, not go through all this rigmarole of confusion and murder, and you're actually killing other young girls who are death shrieks. Like White Hands knows these are young. You're making the caters and all of them. You even made, and another person that knew was that lady who was 400 years old, Adwapa, one of those girls. She'd been here for many years. They all knew.
All right. Yep. Yep.
The one that kept, yeah, she only had like her quarter of death shrieks she would kill, and it was like, what the hell? So you knew, and you were going out there, and you're saying, but the way you reason is like, I only killed 5. What the hell?
Yeah, that's
What? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Now I'm seeing holes in this. But maybe that's the point. Maybe that's what she wanted. Maybe it is it's a allegory of life in that sometimes you're having to sacrifice certain people for the greater good.
yeah, and just the inconsistency of life and um maybe White Hands wasn't the hero, the heroine we think she was, it's showing the complexity. But I mean, in terms of like back to the genre, like it was nice to be in a different world. I was trying to visualize what the Death Shrieks looked like, and it's a nice thing to be able to do when, as we've said in different episodes, just using your mind, that part of your brain, because everything is just served to us now. It's reading requires much more. Your imagination.
Yeah. I have to also point out another inconsistency.
Oh gosh, okay.
Was, and I have to make sure I Google this first before because it made me think, because sometimes when you see these first, let's see, great term, like these first person narratives of like, I did this and I was going through this journey, and now it's like it's a fantasy fiction, and they're using certain wording where you go, okay, you've created this world, it's not in our world, but you're using our language. And correct me if I'm wrong, the word Hulk, has that always existed before Marvel, or did Marvel create that? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the Hulk.
I'm not sure actually. I wouldn't know.
Okay, because if it hasn't, maybe if the Marvel created this Hulk as and popularized Hulk as meaning something big. Maybe it has always meant something big. It was just a bit weird to kind of like see the reference of Hulk and Hulk-like figures. But then I'm talking nonsense because it could possibly be like a word that's always existed to mean big.
I think it might have been a word that already existed.
Yeah. In that case, there is no consistency. I'm sorry, Namina.
I mean, you're just trying to, now you're just really coming for her, aren't you?
I'm not. You
No,
did.
no,
It was you. I blame you.
no,
I came here and said I liked it, and then you started to.
no. I mean, these are fair questions, and that's the effect of like Marvel. You know,
Mm.
they've had this effect on you to think that that's actually a word that they've coined.
Yeah, that's true.
Just
That's
not.
true.
But on the subject of like the world that she's created, I wanted to know a bit more sometimes. And I know you said, well, you're reading like Children of Bone or whatever, like the details a bit too much. But there's one line where she goes and she's hanging out with Dicka's spending time with White Hands, and she says White Hand offers her some exotic fruit. What fruit? Like, what fruit? Come on, like take me. I'm coming on the journey with you, and just it's a really minor thing, but it matters, I think. And I kept looking at the front of the cover. I thought it was a really beautiful cover. I kept on trying to imagine when they were putting on their armory. I'd look every now and then and wonder what that might have looked like. So she did sort of like, she really did draw me in. But in terms of like the content, I also felt like it was gratuitous in terms of the violence, and it gave me Handmaiden vibes.
Oh, do you watch that? Handmaid's Tale?
Yeah, Handmaid's Tale, sorry. Yeah, Handmaiden something else. I think that's a Korean film. Yeah. I watched it. I only got into season 2 and I was like, I think I've seen enough now. There's more violence than there is story, I felt. And then I think for me, the biggest question then is, if this is targeting young people, is it appropriate? You know, how appropriate is this content? Is it the right rating? And if I'm going to recommend it to like a younger family member or person, like this is it being set where it is set, like this Pan-African imaginary place. I'm just not sure it's giving out like a positive message.
Yeah, but I think first, the world is violent. First of all, these kids know I mean, they read about World War One, World War Two. They read about, they probably have relatives that were fought in these wars, or grandparents or great grandparents who've been involved in wars. So violence in books, I don't know if you can kind of escape it, because I guess that's when you start bringing the argument of, even when people say, oh, ban violent music or drill music and stuff like that.
Sexual violence,
yeah,
right? And it's gendered violence. So
yeah,
I think there's a distinction to be made.
Yeah. The girls do get involved in also the killing as well, don't they? So they get involved in like they go out to war and they kill the death streaks. They fight when they start having the battle, they fight in the men and stuff like that. Yeah, I can't even excuse that. I just feel like the young adult readers, like, I think they are exposed to a lot worse, and it doesn't excuse it, but they do read a lot of violent stuff, and they are studying a lot of violent stuff anyway in school. So, and the way the lady sees it, it's fantasy fiction, and it shouldn't be that it's okay. Would I recommend it? I think I would recommend it to a young relative, because I'm hoping that they're clever enough to kind of decipher the message from the violence especially the gendered violence. But I don't know. Yeah, you can. Yeah, you read it with a different lens, and I'm a dude at the end of the day. So yeah. Oh,
I don't know. Yeah.
No, you disagree?
No, I understand what you're saying. the world is a very violent place. But it's something that I think needs to be read with others and then sort of explored together, just because it does get a bit sickly, you know, when we're just massacring the death shrieks. That was just a bit heavy.
Yeah, also as well when the girls describe, you know, what happened to them as well, you know, like Belcalis. I guess maybe the way I'm defending her here now, like I think maybe she wants readers to kind of see the parallel between this world and the real world, and maybe eventually do something about it and stand up for women or stand up against violence against women because they've read it in this context and they've gone, oh wow, like that sounds, what's happening to my friend is similar to what happened to this character in this book, and it made me really sick reading that. So it kind of inspires a young person or even an older reader to go, yeah, violence against women or anyone in general shouldn't happen. Like sometimes books can do that because you're sat there with the book by yourself. A lot of times you're there reading it by yourself. There's quiet. You're having your own imagination. It's entering your brain. You're doing a lot of suspension of disbelief. You're attached to this character that you start seeing and attaching so many different kind of things, and a spark could like really be made, you know, from that's why loads of books, there was loads of those books that were banned, and I'm not telling you anything new, but like books that were banned because powers that be didn't want people to start having ideas from these books and go, what? No, I know you're trying to make it seem like it's set on a animal farm, but I know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So you know, so maybe hopefully that's what she was using. She go, hey, listen, they're talking about these girls being bled for their golden blood, but think about that young person in your life who's going through a similar thing, but instead of her having many times to die, she's getting killed once, and you know, she's being tortured or trafficked and stuff like that. So yeah,
Yeah, and I thought about the multiple lives. You know, I think maybe that was her way of saying or speaking to the resilience of women, and
yeah.
you know, the many near escapes that we have or near deaths, but in real life. Um, yeah, and just her tenacity.
Yeah, and even the assumption that oh, you must be really strong, like as black women, like you must be really strong to be able to weather this pain, you know. Yeah, wow, okay, well, we didn't think we'd go on this journey with the Gilded Ones,
No,
but we did.
we
um
did.
yeah.
I mean, just my last thing would be to you, because you really enjoyed it. Where do you think it would go in the sequel?
Yeah, where would it go in the sequel? Like, I
What
think
do you expect to see?
I'm expecting now that they've got rid of the emperor. They're back in they've created a new world. They're back on top. I'm thinking maybe they go out there and try to rescue all the other girls in the other worlds, in the other cities or countries. And I'm thinking maybe there'll be a new evil to fight. They're calling it the merciless ones. So yeah, the goddesses are walking, but the butterfly terror is far from over. Yeah, so maybe now they could probably the goddesses want revenge. So
Right,
they're
because
gonna
they're
try.
alive now.
They're alive now, so they need to go back and right the wrongs of everyone who done them bad. Um, yeah, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to it. But yeah, and I mean, yeah, I'll look forward to the and it's her first novel as well. But I look forward to the movie. I'll see what the movie has to say.
Yeah, I always like watching movies just to compare. Hopefully we'll get it in this part of the world.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. All right. Well, I think that's a good way to end it.
Yes, it is.
Um, anything else you're up to? Like, no?
Not at the moment. I'm not up to anything.
Yeah.
Just still haven't finished an audiobook from like beginning to end.
Really?
I need to try that. Yeah.
How come?
I don't know. I don't find it as engaging, I don't think.
Mm.
and I don't have enough quiet time. I can't have its background because there's too much going on in my day to day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
But
also, me, I have the luxury of being able to just walk down the street listening to it, or sleep, like listen to it for an hour while I'm sleeping, and then I guess if you don't have that, then it's some people listen to it while they're driving. I don't drive, but I don't know how I could do that listening while I'm driving. I'll be scared, like I'll lose attention. But yeah, I'm back at school, back with the teaching. So we start again tomorrow. And then project wise, anything, directing like a National Theatre Connections play. Not sure if you're familiar with that.
no.
It's like it's a festival of like new writing for written for young audiences, to be performed by young people as well. So I'm working with a youth theatre in West London, in your ends actually, White City Youth Theatre. So so working on that, and then we'll see whatever will be.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Cool. So next month is November.
Mm.
Yes, next month. Tomorrow is November.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's November. Okay, so we've got 2 more before we wrap up for the year.
Yes, 2 more. Yeah, and I think the Abdul Razak one is good. It's a good idea. Very, very good idea. So I guess it's either the first one or the most recent one, and it's up to you because I think I chose this one. So
I like to do the most recent one. It's a love story. I'm sure there'll be some brutality in it, but let's just
Oh yeah, there's bound to be. Isn't this going to, was it like German colony of Tanzania? Yeah,
and I'm really intrigued by that. So that I'm really interested in that history.
Okay, that's good. Actually, we've gone around East Africa a bit. We're obviously East Africa biased, but we've been to East Africa a bit and West Africa, actually all over. Just the was it the Portuguese? I don't know. Lusophones haven't really got much love.
Yeah, and I think that's just a logistical issue. It's tricky to get. You have to plan ahead if you want to get translated copies or availability, but we can explore that next year.
Yeah.
And to be fair, we've mostly done sub-Saharan Africa, if we're accurate.
Oh, we mostly done sub-Saharan. See, this is when I show my ignorance. What is sub-Saharan Africa? Because I hear that a lot from
just below the Sahara. So the like none of the Arabic or like Arabic.
Oh yeah, we haven't done
African countries.
So we haven't done. We haven't
really.
Okay, so that's for next year to then start.
Or maybe we'll do one for December.
Yeah. There's so many, but it's good we've been consistent, because how many books is that? We're coming up to 12. Obviously 12 has been a year, 12 months. But yeah, it's good. It's good. Okay. Cool. All right then.
We'll see you.
So we'll see the people. See you later.
All on day, the one that fits ya.